Welcome to the APAN53 Agricultural Working Group, the oldest working group, if I remember correctly. On behalf of the chair, Dr. Sutatwi Skun from Hydroinformatics Institute in Thailand, and then the co-chair, Professor Adi from Bombay University. They are not here because they are urgent matter. So I'm Virachai Tanpipat from Hydroinformatics Institute will be the one who try to make this conduct this working group session smoothly. So we will start with the first speaker. The first speaker is Dr. Kuddeti Mirabai from Rayan Sima University, India. The topic is for diversity and phyto-sociological study of weeds in paddy crops field of Kanu districts, India. And then it's a 15-minute talk. Please, the floor is yours. From Malaysia? Yeah, I saw you. Okay.
Yes,
then you can start first, sir. Okay. Let me introduce you a bit. Dr. Suakan Kamarasamy, University of Malaysia, Pahang, Malaysia. He will give a talk about agro-photovoltaics solution to energy, water, food, land, and climate issues. Please, sir, you have 15 minutes roughly. The floor is yours. You can share your screen now.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Okay, sir. So I hope the screen is visible to all of you.
Screen, please, like slides mode, please.
Okay. Very good afternoon to all of you.
Okay, clear.
Thanks for giving me this wonderful opportunity to deliver a talk on agro-photovoltaics. I see it's an agricultural working group, so I thought this title would be more appropriate for this this interesting session on agricultural group. This topic is more towards integrating solar photovoltaics with agriculture. So basically, it's to address the problem of energy, water, food, and climate. All three issues can be addressed with this approach. So basically, I'm coming from University Malaysia, Pahang, and I'm associated with this university for the past 5 years. And my interest is more towards energy and environment and a little bit of on solar energy. So now agriculture is becoming a very hot topic. Actually, now it's very much important that we link energy with agriculture. So then only it's possible for all the developing economies to survive. So let me go directly into the presentation. I will start with the global problems of humanity. So most of us know about all the global issues. One of the issues is energy, which is being talked a lot. Then comes the water. Water scarcity is mainly becoming a very big issue, actually, especially like country like India, which is densely populated, and though we have very good, wonderful water reservoirs, but when it comes to agricultural growth, or maybe even for our own drinking water, I think there is a huge shortage of water. And then food, of course, the food is a major issue. The food scarcity is all linked with agriculture. So if your agricultural yield is reduced, then naturally there will be a scarcity of food resource as well. So this is these three are very, very challenging for a country like India and other Asian countries, also Thailand. And almost all the Asian countries have a similar climatic condition and similar issues. So these are some of the other problems like environment, population, of course, disease and war, terrorism, poverty. All this are all, some of these problems are actually interconnected. So I would say Due to this increasing population, I would give more thrust on these three issues. One is water and food and energy. These three issues are actually very significant out of all the things. Some of them actually can be controlled, but whereas these three cannot be controlled until unless we have a good solution for this three global issues. And for that, climate change is also being talked a lot, and indirectly it has got a huge impact on the agricultural, especially the drought, flood, and malnutrition, hunger. These are all actually indirect impact of the global warming and climate change. So it's very urgent that I think we need to find out some suitable solution. So climate solution is one side. We are working on the technology to find what kind of solutions we have on the energy side. But when it comes to the agricultural sector, I think it's becoming very challenged because we need the modern solution for agriculture also, because every time we come across this issues of flood and drought, and which affects actually the agriculture as a whole. And you might all know about the farmers issue in India, and it become a very hot topic in India because of so many agricultural issues. So these are all actually very complex to understand, very interconnected also. So right time, we need to work on some technological solutions. We have some technological solution, which I would like to highlight in this particular presentation. Food production is one side. The other side, it is energy production. So, but food production, converting all the agricultural land into for energy production, that good also, because it may lead to food scarcity. So there is always a competition of arable land. So we cannot use the arable land for agriculture for the energy production. So these are some competitive issues. Biomass is being talked a lot, especially for energy production, but I would say it should be like a mix of both energy and food. So we cannot completely use the agricultural land only for energy production. Especially these days, there are been talk on using land for energy products, especially sugar cane and some other highly agricultural yield food crops are being, energy crops are being cultivated, but this may create a lot of problems. So it's right time we need to think about finding a suitable alternative, how we can actually grow food as well as how we can grow energy at the same time at the same place. So this is how we need to think about it. And biomass has got its own issues actually, because of this cannot actually completely substitute fossil fuels. So there are issues with completely thinking about biomass as an alternate source of energy, because it competes with food production as well. Then what solutions we have? We have actually two different solutions. So I would highlight, I think most of us are familiar with this agroforestry system. And then the latest technology is called as agrivoltaic system. I think this is something very interesting. And last few years, a lot of work has been going on agrivoltaic systems, integrating solar systems with agriculture. So we produce energy, and this one energy as well as the food in the same place, as well as agroforestry, actually growing energy crops as well as trees and shrubs and all. So indirectly can contribute to the mitigation of climate change. At the same time, it can also produce a viable source for us. So these two are the major solutions we have in front of us for almost all the country. I think these two can actually solve many of the issues specifically related to the water, specifically related to the land, specifically related to the energy aspects as well. So let's see about agroforestry. This has been given a lot of stress in many of the countries where they grow trees and shrubs in association with many other herbaceous crops in a different arrangement. And the advantage with this kind of approaches, we get better yield, we get diversify the agricultural crop productivity. So thereby we have some surplus biomass, which this biomass can be useful for energy production also. So the advantage is we are able to take care of both food production as well as the production. The agrivoltaics, which is actually the recent technology where we are actually growing the crops below the solar panel. So basically we have two advantages. One is the crops which is able to produce yield, the agricultural yield is there. At the same time, the solar which is actually able to produce energy, which is electricity, and the farmers actually get benefited with this approach. Energy generation actually can be used for powering the rural areas, as well as it can contribute to the greener electricity. And food production, actually it can produce different varieties of crops can be used, and it can contribute to the better energy requirement. So, but what are the factors? Actually, there are some working principle behind it. It's not a straightforward technique. It has got engineering aspects in it. Now, what is the engineering aspect? Actually, it involves the solar systems, panels, which has to be kept at a particular height from the ground, so that this crops can actually grow under the shadow. And because some of the crops actually can grow under the shadow as well. So we need to identify the crops which can grow with less amount of sunlight. So such crops are suitable for these kind of systems. And for the solar side, actually, it has to be oriented towards proper direction. Actually, in northern hemisphere, it should be in south. And then the optimum tilt angle, because you want to collect more amount of sunlight for energy production also. So the design aspects comes into it. There are many other ways. It basically uses the solar panel to convert the sunlight into electricity. And then the crops actually grow below the shading. And what happens is these actually because of this solar panel, actually that creates a small microclimate issues. Actually, it tries to alter the environmental conditions in the surface. So thereby there can be a kind of a new microclimate. So this is which has to be studied in detail. And of course, since it actually provides a cooling effect, then there is a better efficiency improvement. So that is what literature is telling. But we need further analysis on this microclimate aspect, how this affects the local microclimate also. There are different aspects of these designs. You can see there are mobile and fixed panel type, and then there are how much density you want to cover. You want to cover the half density or full density. It also depends on the sizes, single axis system, double axis system, and constant tilt angle. There are so many different types of PV system. Actually, we can study one by one how these systems can be integrated into the agricultural forms. Let me quickly go and show some of the pictures, some of the different types of solar systems which have been implemented with agriculture. So these are some of the examples. It can be a normal solar panel at a different height, at a particular height from the ground level, maybe 4 to 5 meters above the ground, and then some of them can be actually at the ground level itself, very close to the ground level. So there can be spacing between these two systems, and then this can actually help us for better shading. And then the plants which doesn't grow taller, such plants can be grown. So it can be ground mounted systems as well, and it can be a normal little bit height also. It can be a transparent systems as well, and it can be a bifacial technology. Bifacial, two solar panels will be on one on each other. So these kind of designs actually can be tried and tested. And different parts of the world, there are different environmental conditions. Actually, we need to look into the environmental condition and design the systems appropriately. So a lot of engineering is involved in it. Because there's mechanical engineering and electrical engineering, and then agricultural engineering. So all these things are involved in this systems. I'll quickly go into a couple of important optimum designs. So you need to place this system towards the south. In northern hemisphere, it should be approximately equal to the latitude. And we should see that there should not be excessive shadowing effect. Actually, more shadow than it may affect the crop productivity also. So we need to play with the optimum combination. So basically, we need to see how much you want to cover. You want to have a high density or low density, or what type of sloping we need to have. So all these factors to be considered in this design. Some of the key benefits are highlighted here. So it actually adds to the farmer's revenue, and it enhances the PV performance. Of course, because of cooling effect, there is a enhanced performance. Decrease water use, because the same water which we use for agriculture can be used for cooling the solar systems also, thereby there is a less amount of water use. It can help in building stronger ties with agricultural world. Thailand and many other agricultural based economy can get benefited with this technology. And for the drawbacks, actually it adds additional cost of solar system, which may increase the overall cost. Only very specifically few crops can be used, because I showed that only limited plants which can grow under the shadow, they can be only selected, and they may have some visual or glare or landscaping impacts. Actually, some of them may not like this structure coming into the agricultural system, so it may affect this visual impact and all these things. And then harvesting issues, because these are structures in the agricultural farm. So when you want to use tractors or some other machineries, we may find difficulty in doing that. Then electrical safety is one factor which we should consider. Some other factors are how much height we need to place the solar panel from the ground, what is the elevation, what is the tilt angle of the solar system, what is the orientation, what is the interpost spacing, what is the ground coverage ratio, the coverage density. These are some of the technical factors which we need to analyze in detail. And then,
excuse me, you have 2 more minutes.
okay, sir. Thank you. These are some of the factors which we need to consider before designing the systems. There are some of the crops, you can see melons, chilies, cucumbers, and there are some of the crops which can be used in this kind of systems. And of course, we need to more study about the electrical infrastructure and so many other factors also to be considered. These are some of the latest techniques which are going. When you consider this solar system, we need to think about sustainability. So we need to balance the economic interest, social interest, and environmental interest. So we need to consider all these indicators also. How it can contribute to the economy, how it can contribute to the social benefit, of course, how it can contribute to the environmental aspects. So finally, I would like to conclude with this small sustainable framework. Actually, these days we are talking more on sustainability. So in order to have a global sustainability, one important aspect will be sustainable agriculture and agroforestry. And then when we consider the energy, it should be sustainable energy. It should be a circular economy approach, where almost all the waste should be converted into energy. And we need to promote the education, sustainable education and innovation-oriented research. And the organizational culture should be more sustainable, and collaboration among interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary people, and sustainable life, where we should integrate the human and environmental consciousness. So these are all very important aspects of thinking about sustainability framework. And if at all you want like to know about myself, you can find all this information in my personal profile as well as in Google search and my contact detail. That's all from my side. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I pass on the stage to the next speaker. Thank you.
Right, okay, thank you very much for keeping your time. Excellent. We have many speakers, and then the first speaker arrived. So I introduce her so she can present her, give her talk. Dr. Kutiti Mirabai from Rayanlasima University, India. Her talk will be diversity and phytosociological study of wheats and paddy crop field of Kunnu district, India. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. Share your screen, please.
I will share, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Are you visible, sir?
Yes, full screen. Okay. Are you using phone? I think.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Please start. That's good.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
So I am Dr. Mirabai from Rayalasima University, Kurnool, sir. So I am very thankful for giving me this opportunity to the organizers. And now I am going to start my talk on diversity and phytocytological study of weeds in paddy crop fields of Kurnool district, Andhra Pradesh, India. So you know very well, it is a very well-known factor that India is a country which is mostly dependent on agriculture. 50% of the population is dependent on agriculture, and it is the main source of income also. Agriculture is a backbone for Indian economy, and moreover in Andhra Pradesh, chiefly it is reliant on agriculture, and nearly 62% of the people are obtaining their jobs either directly or indirectly from this agriculture only. So the Andhra Pradesh was one of the state which was went in for the green revolution. In India, there are abundant weed species, among which many of them are facultative or obligate weeds, and some of other are established in croplands as crop associated or crop bounded weeds. There are a serious infuriation in every crop growth in India, and particularly in the early period of the crop growth. And these weeds are becoming an hazardous condition, and it became as international obscurity. So for tracking this obscurity, tackling of this obscurity of weeds, there are certain vital essentials or vital prerequisites are there, that is to take the availability of information, and then to know their economic significance, and to know the diverse methods of their control, material essential for the purpose. These are all certain things which are uh, vital prerequisites for controlling these problem. And then, however, recent studies have indicated that increased weed diversity may have a positive impact on the functioning of agroecosystems. And individual weed species are known to differ in their ecological function in terms of providing resources for beneficial invertebrates and seed-eating birds. So, and not only they are useful as nutrients to the birds and invertebrates, several human beings are also using them as forages, and for medicinal uses. Several medicinal uses are there with these weeds. So weeds are the most intriguing and immeasurable plants in the world for ecologically minded weed scientists. So documenting of a weed species and its relative distribution facilitates the founding of priorities for research and conservatory services. And it is very essential to know the quantitative relationship of the plant species which are growing in an area, because this quantitative relationship reflects the structural property of the community. So ecological surveys of weed flora give us an absolute idea regarding the weed's dominance. And it is desirable to know the quantitative characters like density, frequency, important value index of the weeds, which are important to determine the nature of weed communities. So this kind of surveys is very essential to know the control strategy, to develop the control strategies also. In Andhra Pradesh, rice is one of the major food crop, contributing about 77% of the food grain production of the state. So thus we conducted a wide ranging and a comprehensive surveys during different months of Kharif and Rabi seasons, and evaluated the quantitative characters of weeds growing in BT 5204 variety of paddy crops. So for this purpose, the this Kurnool district, we selected the Kurnool district because it is our home place. So in Kurnool district, it is located in the west central part of the state, in between north latitudes and east longitudes, and it receives a scarce rainfall ranging about 500 mm to 750 mm and the average rainfall is about 670 mm. And the soils black soils are more dominant here, and followed by the red soils and other soils. So for this purpose, to quantify the characters of these weeds, we used quantitative analysis. So during the course of a field study, the weeds encountered in the field sites of the crop fields were carefully collected and identified. After completion of the collection of weeds, we identified the names with the help of relevant, authentic regional floras, monographs, and other relevant literature. And consequently, we had given the correct names to them, and then by to know the domination of the weeds in studied areas, we we made 1 meter into 1 meter size quadrates. We laid down, and at randomly the number of quadrates are varied from site to site because of the uh, land area varies for cultivation. So uh, the number of quadrates are varied from site to site. So for this, in such a way, we collected the baseline information about weeds of the study area. So based on this data collected in the field, we calculated the phytosocial sociological attributes such as their abundance, density, frequency, and their relative values and importance value index were calculated by using the basic principles formulated by Curtis and McIntosh, Misra and Muller, Dombayas and Ellenberg. So by using formulas formulated by these scientists, we evaluated the quantitative characters of the weeds in the crop field. So for calculating this abundance and relative abundance, we used this formula, that is total number of individuals of a species in all quadrates is divided by the number of quadrates in which the species occurred. And for relative abundance of individual of a species by total abundance of all species, it is divided and then multiplied with the 100 for relative abundance. For determining the density of a species, the total number of individuals of a species in all quadrates is divided by total number of quadrates studied. And to know the relative density, we taken the density of individuals of a species by total density of all species into 100. And to know the frequency of each weed, total number of quadrates in which the species occur by total number of quadrates studied, and it is multiplied with 100. And then relative frequency is calculated in the same manner, like frequency of individuals of a species is divided by total frequency of all species and multiplied with the 100. So after completion of these calculations, we calculated the important value index by taking their relative values. Importance value index is equal to relative density plus relative frequency plus relative abundance. So by adding all these relative values, we determine the important value index of each species. So this is the table which is providing the important value index of all the species. So in this table, in this study, 31 weed species are identified, which are distributed in different sites where we studied in this Kurnool district. And for all these 31 species, the IV values are calculated. Among them, only 4 of them are having highest IVA values. So we taken all only these 4. So though 31 species which are distributed in 28 genera and 17 families are there in the crop fields. So among these species, only very few of them are identified in large numbers. That is Phyllanthus amaras, which belongs to the family Euphorbiaceae. It was present total individuals of this plant are 495. And Cyperus area, it is having 453 species. And Hydrolia jailanica, it is about 431. And Eclipta prostata, there are about 307. So by after counting all these total number of individuals for each and every species, we calculated this IVA values. So based on these IVA values, Ammania baxifera, it is having the highest IVA, important value index, that is about 35.92. And then this Hydrolia jailanica is the second one, which is having 34.62 of the important value index. And then Philanthus amarus, this one is having the IVA value of 33.70, and Cyperus iria, that is the fourth one, which is having the IVA value of 31.96. So these are the 4 species which are identified with having high important value indices. So these weeds, they are opportunistic species and are succeeded a lot at present than they succeeded in the past before global environmental changes that are caused by the human beings. So these opportunistic species, they intensify high growth rates and make use of less crawling ecological niches and produced many offsprings by their biotic potential. So these weeds are outstanding species during the early stages of ecological succession, and they are ubiquitous biological jays within and out of the crop fields, and totaling to the intricacy of interacting trophic levels and act as indicators of biodiversity. So number of weeds identified in the present study was used as leafy vegetables and forages, foders, as well as in medicine. So here, this table is showing the economic use of these plants. It is Ammania baxifera, which belongs to this family Lytheraceae. The young leaves of this plant are edible as a leafy vegetable, and the leaves are having highly medicinal value. They are useful as an application as a plaster to the skin in order to increase local blood supply in the treatment of skin diseases, wounds, and swellings, and are also used as an external remedy for ringworms and parasitic skin infections. And even the whole plant of this one is used in the
Excuse
treatment
me, you
of,
have 2 minutes left.
okay,
Thank
okay. It is used in fevers. So in such a way, each and every plant is having its own medicinal value. And moreover, this Eclipta prostata, it is one of the plant which yields black dye, which is useful for hairs as well as to use the boats to make it black. So in such a way, each and every species is having its own economic use. So because of this, besides these uses, the weeds are managing the complexity of interacting trophic levels. It is managing the complexity of interacting trophic levels within and around the increased fields, crop fields. So an increasing awareness of economic and ecological uses of weeds rectifies habitat simplification and increases vegetational diversity and food resources to the beneficial insects and to human beings. And it has been proven that allowing weed diversity on field margins, edges, paths, and fence lines was agronomically pragmatic, and it enhances the beneficial entomofauna. So thus it was suggested to the government authorities to provide some economic incentives to the farmers to recover the loss caused due to allelopathic effect of weeds on certain crops in performance payments for environmental services schemes to allow the growth of useful weeds for sustainable development of the country. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to the organizers once again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for keeping the time. Yeah, we have many speakers. Thank you very much. Okay, I don't see that the next speaker arrived already. The Professor Yadati, are you here? Okay, not here. Then I move to the next speaker, Professor Dr. Harunun Rashid, Department of Fisheries Management, Faculty of Fisheries, Bangladesh Agricultural University, Bangladesh. He will give a talk about the value of wetlands for food and environmental security. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. APAN53, and welcome, my dear colleagues, audiences. Today, it's my pleasure to present on the topic that is already mentioned, the values of wetlands for food and environmental security. The topic that do you see my screen, Dr. APAN53?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's great.
Perfect.
So the title is the values of natural wetlands, in particular, for food and environmental security. As mentioned, I'm Professor Harun Rashid. I belong to the Department of Fisheries Management in the Faculty of Fisheries at Bangladesh Agricultural University. And the presentation that I will have today is I will compose mostly of the examples and illustrations from different wetlands of Bangladesh. All of us, we know what wetland is. Wetlands are the low-lying ecosystems in mostly in inland, where the groundwater table is always at or near the surface. And according to the Ramsar Convention, the wetlands are maybe different kinds of marsh, fens, peatlands that can be natural or man-made wetlands. They can be permanent or temporary, seasonally changing, and there can be water with static and flowing water. Of course, these static and flowing, they vary seasonally. They can be fresh, brackish, or saltwater wetlands. Of course, they can also include a part of the marine waters in the coastline. This is actually a typical wetland, and the different levels of waters and activities in a typical wetland of Bangladesh. As you can see, on the bank of the wetland is an upland, and just down it, where the wetland starts, is a place for the wet meadow, and the next level is for seasonal marshes and perennial marshes, and is sometimes adjacent with open water. And you can see agriculture going on here. But in the monsoon, this wetland will become full of water, inundated by water, and with a lush growth of fish production and other aquatic life forms, and migration of fish and other aquatic life forms. So this is how wetlands have become not only actually hosting the biodiversity of aquatic life forms, but also during the dry season, a lot of agriculture and food production is going on. That's why wetlands are so important for us, both for environment and food production. This illustration I have taken years ago from a huge wetland that becomes and inundated in the monsoon with waters coming from Cherrapunji and Kashia hills of India, with a flash flood, a very dry land with some deeper part remaining with water, becomes a huge water body that actually brings a huge fishery production and a lot of aquatic life forms, not only fish, but also aquatic birds, aquaterrestrial plants, the plants that can survive in inundation, floating plants, a lot of aquatic mammals. So it's a huge water body, huge wetland that also supports gradual refilling, supplying of waters to the downstream rivers, gradually, relatively clean water and clear water. So the wetlands that we have, not only in Bangladesh, these are the wetlands that I'm showing are representative of the wetlands in Asia. The wetlands in Asia are also composed of lakes, wetlands that are full of aquatic vegetations and not only source of food production and supporting environment, but also a destination for the tourists also, the wetlands are. Wetlands like the coastal mangroves are very rich biodiverse ecosystem with a lot of ecosystem services. This is a picture taken from the Sundarbans, you know that the largest halophytic tropical mangrove forest of the world, with 60% in Bangladesh and 40% in India, West Bengal. Why the wetland is so important for the environment? One of the most important functions the wetland actually gives us is that wetland supports us with trapping and holding of pollutants. It purifies the water. Wetlands in the up or in the middle of the journey of the water, it purifies the water. It removes the pollutants. It allows settling of the suspended solids. It removes the nutrients and also removes a lot of toxic materials. As a result, in the downflow to the rivers or other actually downstream wetlands it feeds with, it keeps with relatively clean and clear water, pure, relatively more pure water. So purifying function is one of the most important ecosystem service that wetlands gives to us. But also wetlands, both in inland or in the coastal, they provide a huge ecosystem service with stabilization of the shoreline, stabilization of the land, preventing from the erosion, because either it is a lake or river bank or a coastal shoreline, the root system networks of root systems that and the aquatic vegetables that wetlands have, which are with a composition of submerged, inundated, or immersed trees and other vegetations. All of them have a service to be provided to trap the soil with their root systems and protecting the soil from the erosion. And we know that with more and more agriculture and land use changes, there are more the cases of soil erosion, and wetlands, conservation of wetlands can support us with a lot of actually prevention of this kind of degradation of lands. But also wetlands are a source of refilling our groundwater, the groundwater that we use for drinking, the groundwater that we use a lot for irrigation and food production, but also for industries. So groundwater is so important for us because this is a pure water that can be used for so many purposes, including food production. And you can see how the surface water flow is actually stored by the wetlands. And again, the groundwater also is also the feeding the wetlands and vice versa. And again, the wetland, again, when there is a deficiency of in the groundwater table, is slowly the filtered water in the groundwater is gradually supported by and supplied by the wetlands. And again, the one wetland supplying water to other wetlands or the flowing stream, which is relatively more clear. So either flowing clear water to the downstreams or refilling the groundwater, which has a lot of ecosystem values and commercial values and food production values. All of them are recharged by the wetlands. So they're so important. but a very important service to the human settlements and built ecosystems and agriculture and food production is supplied by the wetland is the flood protection. Wetlands, they are the primary storage of waters coming from the upstream, either from the melting of snow that we experience in the down the foothills of Himalayan countries, but also rainfall is obvious and common in all over the country, also in Asia. So the first storage of this meltdown water or rainwater is done by the wetlands. So preservation of wetland really can help us to protect ourselves, food, agriculture, and human settlements from the flooding. So with climate change, more and more flooding coming and destroying our human settlements and agriculture, we need more wetlands to be protected. But of course, with climate change, the one important issue is the climate change mitigation. With more and more releasing of petroleum hydrocarbons and being utilized and carbon dioxide being released in the atmosphere, we need to preserve those agencies which actually can sequester carbon. And wetlands has so many functions of sequestering carbon with photosynthetic plants like mangroves, marshes, even the phytoplanktons. All of them are sequestering carbon. But they not only sequester carbon with their leaves, but also their stems and huge network of breathing roots and pneumatophores they have under the soil. They store a huge amount of carbon, we know, and also they store carbon in the soil. That is most important thing by the wetlands, particularly rich with the aquatic plants like the salt marshes and mangroves, and also the submerged plants in the wetlands like the mangroves and the ecosystem that we have. All of them have the functions of sequestering carbon. So with climate mitigation, wetlands can be an agency with a lot of different functions of carbon sequestration. It's so important for climate change. And you can imagine a mangrove forest that is shared by Bangladesh and India with some 10,000 square kilometers of mangroves, how it is actually storing and sequestering a lot of carbons in its land, in its equatorial intertidal zone, and in its water with the planktons and other organic carbons depositions. So important. But wetlands are also rich home of biodiversity. In the wetlands, in freshwater, we have down the foothills of the Khashia Hills and Charamundi that I mentioned. There is one of the richest host of the migratory birds from South Siberia and North. A lot of huge assembly of migratory birds. They come here for their winter refuge, but also with a huge water body producing a lot of fish. They are the home for a lot of birds, mammals, and reptiles and amphibians. So but not only they are actually hosting birds, but also they are the breeding grounds of these animals. So many aquatic animals, lush growth of plants. And also they are the unique habitat of some of the animals in certain stages of their life cycle, which actually is essential for completing their life cycle. So without this intermediate life cycle hosting agency, like the wetlands, the life cycle of this animal, those animals cannot be completed. And you can see this is a picture from the how wetlands of Bangladesh down the foothills of Cherrapunji and Khashia Hills, with migratory birds coming from the Siberia, but also a very critically endangered life forms like ring-tailed fishing eagle, which is only the last refuge is these wetlands in Bangladesh. Is actually these kind of life forms like very critically and threatened life forms. Also, a lot of aquatic threatened life forms also are hosted by wetlands, not only in Bangladesh, all over the world. So wetlands as a source of biodiversity is so important. You know that Royal Bengal tiger is hosted by the Sundarbans in Bangladesh and India, the largest helophytic mangrove forest, but also saltwater crocodiles, dolphins, Irrawaddy dolphins and Ganges River dolphins, a huge population of them. are in the mangroves also are wetlands. As you can see, the dolphins. So the Bangladesh Indian part of the Sundarbans, 10,000 square kilometers of this productive ecosystem. They are not only hosting the Bengal tiger, but they are aquatic ecosystems, not only inside the Sundarbans, but the aquatic rich productivity of the ecosystems. The support with supplying huge nutrients by 2 low tides a day is hosting a huge productive ecosystem in the Swatch of no ground.
You have 2 minutes left, sir.
Yes, thank you very much for reminding. And these host a lot of different dolphins, porpoises, sharks, rays, whales, which are actually all the conserved species and are the properties of the world. 50% global population of Irrawaddy dolphin is in the around the waters of Sundarbans, and a huge fish production we get not only from the salt marshes, but also from the freshwater wetlands. And that is why actually the Ramsar Convention of Wetlands, they are regularly actually giving concerning messages on the importance of wetlands because of their importance with biodiversity, sustainable development, and climate, is that there are destruction and deterioration of wetlands increasing day by day, and losses of biodiversity are rising in the wetlands. Many sources of pollution around the wetlands, particularly from the agricultures, are coming to the wetlands. That's why improving the wetlands, ecological integrity of the wetlands, conserving the wetlands are so important. So important not only for climate, but also for the overall environment and for food production. So if we want to help global climate, regional environment, and local food production, we must save our wetlands. So with these few words, I end here, and thank you so very much for patience hearing.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting. Anybody have any question?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay, please.
I'm not an agriculturist, but one question for Harun sir. Thanks for your wonderful presentation. Actually, you mentioned that we should nurture and nourish wetlands, but what can be the procedure or what can be the ways we can nourish it?
Well, wetlands, preservation and conservation of wetlands require local, national, and regional and global collaborations. So nationally, what we can do is that make a lot of good policies, but more important is that implementing policies. We must remember that wetlands, converting wetland doesn't create much of a value, but conserving wetlands create much values because that's more sustainable. Conserving wetlands will give us food production for many years, but converting wetlands will destroy the natural food production, will give us food for very short time. So national policies are so important, but also regional policies, because for countries like Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Bhutan, we are all the Ganges and Brahmaputra river countries. So we have a lot of networking with us with the aquatic ecosystem. So to preserve wetlands, we must work together and network together to work for the preservation of the better benefit of this regional wetlands that are fed by the Ganges, Brahmaputra, Meghna river system in this Ganges Delta. Thank you so much for your nice question.
So I wish that this work group can work as a catalyst for this regional collaboration policies or for these regional policies. Thank you.
Let's work together. Thank you.
Okay, we will try. We will try. We will try. Okay. Well, actually, I have another question, but then there's no more speaker coming, and then the speaker from the previous session, she requests to, if we have time, so I will give her a floor to speak for 15 minutes, and then we have a short discussion. She's Dr. Anjali Singh from PDPM, Indian Institute of Information Technology, Design and Manufacturing, Jabalpur, India. She will talk about her topic is chemically modified starches, procurement, characterization, and application in food industry. The floor is yours, and keep it down to 15 minutes, please. Then we can have discussion and question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. A very good afternoon to all of you. Myself, Singh, and I work in NIT, National Institute of Technology, Jalandhar, and I work in under the supervision of Professor B.S. Katz and Professor Dheeraj Sood.
Full screen, please.
So starting from, okay, sir. So my screen is visible now.
Not on mine, but it's okay. Just continue your talk, and it's better.
I'll adjust it, sir. My topic of the presentation: chemical starches, their procurement, characterization, and applications in food industry. So my slides will contain the following content. Yeah, it will contain introduction, chemical composition, structural modifications, application, and future scope of the following starches. Basically, the taro comes, these are basically known as taro starches also. They belong to kingdom, order Aristotles, family Araceae, genus Colocasia, species Esculenta. So these are well-known name member of the Araceae family, and is mostly used in developing the countries by small farmers, have been using it as a staple food for over 9,000 years. And it is also amongst the second most cultivated, is being observed in tropical and subtropical zones. Different parts of Colocasia esculenta, flower, leaves, and cones. The geographic distribution will further indicate that in country Nigeria, the production is 3.3 million tons. In China, 1.8 million tons. Cameroon, 1.6 million tons.
Oh, then, okay. We wait for her to come back. I'm typing the question to Professor Dr. Harunun that I'm wondering because of the disaster, the typhoon, I don't know, the typhoon, the tropical storm that hit the wetland. Oh, she's back. Then we can.
Thank you very much. And that's why actually wetlands are so important. So we know that the wetlands.
The connection got interrupted.
Okay, maybe okay. Yes, let her finish first then. Okay, sorry.
Should I continue?
So my screen is visible now.
So you can well, you can continue the presentation first,
okay,
Angeli, and then we will get to the question.
Okay. So what I was saying is Nigeria, it will be having the 3.3 million tons production, China 1.8 million tons production, Cameroon 1.6 million tons production, Ghana 1.3 million tons production, India 0.5, and Papua New Guinea is 0.3. So the total will be having the production of taro Colocasia esculenta as 10.2 million tons. And basically, the taro starches have been containing the most amount of the starches that will be detected as 22.64% from the literature survey. And then cassava starch will be having 17.6%, kidney bean 19.4%, sweet potato as 0.6%. Components per 100 gram edible portion. Components per 100 gram edible portion, we can see that it is containing the edible portion up to 81% in the corms and leaves 55%, 84% from petioles. Energy, the energy having more in calories from corms, that is 85%, 85 calories, 69 from leaves, 18 from petioles. Thereafter, moisture, 77.5, 79.6, and 93.8 from petioles, respectively. So here we'll be seeing the vitamin and carbohydrate distribution over here from this table, and that is also from component per 100 gram edible portion. Thereafter, basically from where it has come out, Lin and Huang extensively studied their structure, and what they have found is they have found an extremely complex structure of carbohydrate. Then the chemical constituents of taro also contain starch, amylose, amylopectin. Amylopectin it will be containing as 80% in their structure, basic structure, and 20% of amylose. So there will be a ratio of 80:20 in the Colocasia esculenta. Also a minute quantity of D-galactose and
I think her connection is not that stable. Well, okay. When she okay, she back again. So what can we do here? Anjali is are you there? I think your connection not stable. Okay, it's fine. Please.
yes, sir, it's going and it's fluctuating here.
Okay, I'll try to share again one more time. If not, it's we try to go to wrap it up. I think it's better because of the state, the connection of your connection. Don't go too much into the detail.
So I have already only left 4-5 yes, 4-5 slides only.
Okay,
So
okay, please continue.
I'll be winding it up.
Okay. Ah, she's gone again. Oh, okay. Okay.
Should I start my talk? This is Narahari here.
She's
my
back
talk
again.
Scheduled from 11:45.
But wait, I understand that. Okay, let's give her one last chance. Okay, finish up with the please, Anjali, you please finish up your talk.
Okay. Up that the pre-gelatinization, mechanical milling, control-sonication, heat moisture treatment, and annealing. And the pre-gelatinization, basically, we are considering it as a stable. It will give a native and stabilized starches the ability to form a cold another paste, water paste, and they also develop the viscosity without the need for a heat, which means that the food manufacturer does not need to pre-cook the starch. So that is a basic method to structurally modify the starches. Another one is mechanical milling, and mechanical milling basically used to change the properties like particle size, particle shape, particle surface characteristics. Basically, broadly, it is used to grind the powder.
Oh, okay. Her connection is not that good. Okay. Then she's back again. Okay. Anjali, you don't need to turn on your video. Just wrap up with your talk. It's good enough, I think, because of the connection. Please.
Okay, sir. So basically, I have found structural modification from chemical method, that is stabilization, cross-linking, lipophilic substitution, dextrinization, acid hydrolysis, enzyme hydrolysis, oxidation, acid hydrolysis. And from the same analysis, I have found that basically in the initial structure, they have contained the granules. Now, after modification it into the acetylated one, the acetylated starch, I have found that these granules got disappeared and they have modified the surface. Earlier it was very rough in the same analysis, and now it has consisting of somewhat surface smooth.
Okay. The connection is not so good. Then I guess we move up to the previous speaker who just joined us. Where is it? The Professor Yanati Narahari.
Yes.
Yeah, please. Anjali, I'm sorry. You can wrap it up later. Let Professor Narahari start and finish his talk first.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Shall I share my screen now?
Yes, please.
Yes.
You have 15 minutes.
Sure. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes. And in full slide mode, please.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, okay.
You're able to see this now, right? Excellent.
Yes, yes.
So thank you very much. I must thank APAN for this wonderful opportunity provided to me to be able to present some of the work that we have been currently doing in the area of agriculture crop price prediction. My name is Narahari. I am from the Game Theory Lab at the Department of Computer Science and Automation, IISc, Bangalore. So good morning to all of you. I hope you are able to see my slides. And is my audio clear?
Yes, please.
Yes, everything clear. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Outline of the talk. I think there'll be 3 parts to the talk. I will first talk about the significance of the agriculture crop prediction problem. And later take you to a very brief review of relevant recent work in this area. Finally, I will try to explain the ongoing work at IISc Bangalore. Now it's all of us know very well that in the entire agriculture end-to-end cycle, starting all the way from planning to procuring the inputs and then the actual farming activities, and finally followed by harvest and post-harvest activities, there is a tremendous opportunity for using artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques for improving the current state of practice and the current state of the operations. For example, during the planning stage, decisions like what crops to grow, when to sow the seeds, where to source the inputs could be some decisions in the very planning stage, which can benefit from the availability of relevant data. Then on the input side, ensuring quality of the seeds, then the fertilizers and pesticides, then the availability of farm equipment, insurance and credit. So these are all activities which can again benefit a great deal from the availability of data. So one can use data-driven AI/ML techniques for doing these in a much better way. And during the farming, there are various issues like the weather, the irrigation, the pest control, then the grading and so on. And finally, during the harvest, when to harvest, then what are the market prices likely to be, where to sell the produce, and then things like storage and logistics. So there are a number of decisions that can again benefit from data-driven techniques. Now it turns out that in this life cycle of agriculture process, there are many use cases where AI/ML can be used. I will present to you 2 most relevant use cases. One is that of agriculture crop price prediction. This is a very important problem because it will help the farmers in planning the sowing activity, then harvesting, and also will enable the government to plan better. And if we are able to predict the prices of our agriculture produce at various stages of the farming, it will go a long way in helping the farmer and also in helping the policy makers. Now, in order to be able to predict the prices in a very accurate way, of course, one has a lot of historical data that's available to us. Then we have to also capture supply side and demand side factors, because the prices pretty much depend on the supply demand dynamics. And then of course one can use very sophisticated machine learning and deep learning models in order to be able to predict things in a much better way. Now it turns out that this is not a trivial problem at all. In fact, one can describe this as a grand challenge problem in agriculture, because the price of an agricultural crop is decided by a number of factors and there is stochasticity that is involved everywhere. So data alone will not help us. And it turns out that there are certain crops where the prices tend to be very stable. For example, it could be potato or paddy or maize and so on. Whereas, there are also, crops like onions and tomatoes where it is not possible to, predict the prices that accurately. So we need to sort of stretch ourselves. We need to use the best mathematical models, and we have to use the cleanest possible data in order to be able to solve this problem effectively. Now, another related use case, which is on the same lines as price prediction, is what kind of crops do you recommend to the farmers? This is an extremely important problem because very often farmers suffer terrible losses because they don't choose the crops properly. They, in some sense, they try to follow traditional best practices, which may or may not always work. And so if we are able to predict the yields and the prices, that will go a long way in predicting the crop prices. And one can actually recommend portfolios of crops using sophisticated models. Now, it turns out that there are many challenges in solving this problem. Cultural factors play an extremely important role. For example, I have personally interviewed many farmers, and if you try to explain to them that this portfolio of crops would be better for you for the next 1 year, rather than what you have been doing historically over the 10, 15, 20 years, then they would immediately come back to you and tell you, no, this is something that we have been doing successfully over several decades. And this is what our elders have told us. There is no way in which we are going to change. So then, yield also depends on climate variability. It depends on demand export uncertainty. And if we are able to come up with explainable machine learning models, using which we can explain in a very convincing way to the farmers in a language that they will actually understand and appreciate, then it will be a game changer, both the price prediction apps and also the crop recommendation apps. So this is the basic idea with which we have been working on this problem. Now it turns out that the price prediction problem itself, on which the current talk is focused on, there is a vast amount of literature in this area. I have here given only 4 very recent references. These are conferences, ICTD, then Compass, then IAAI, and also COTS Command. These are very well-known conferences which look at which publish papers in data-driven techniques for social good. And so, if, for example, if you look at this, the first paper here, so they are looking at an interpretable produce price forecasting system for small and marginal farmers in India. The second paper is talking about price forecasting and anomaly detection for agricultural commodities in India. The third paper is talking about improving lives of indebted farmers using deep learning. And the fourth paper is talking about context-based model selection for improved crop price forecasting. These are all very thoroughly researched papers which talk about how price prediction can be made more scientific, and how we will be able to get more accurate predictions for the crop prices. Now, it turns out that in all of these papers, there are a few gaps. So this is where I think the ongoing work at the Indian Institute of Science comes into picture. What we are trying to do in a modest way is to look at 5 different crops: potato, onion, tomato, paddy, and maize. And you will very quickly see that onion and tomato, the prices can be volatile, whereas potato, paddy, and maize are more stable here. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to use standard data which is available from public sources such as AgMarkNet, ICRISAT, and then the government departments. And what we have generally found is that the data that is available to us needs a lot of curation. And we have found that coming up with sophisticated machine learning or deep learning models is the simpler of the problems, whereas coming up with data that is clean and curated and which will produce credible forecasts and estimates, that is the real challenge. So what we have tried to do is to gather this data from the different sources which are available, do a sanity check, do a consistency check, and then ensure that we use fairly appropriate methods of data imputation in order to fill the missing entries, and also eliminate outliers which are somewhat terrible. So this has taken us a lot of time for these 5 crops that we are considering. We are looking at data from all over India at this point of time. We are looking at data from the Uttar Pradesh mandis. And what we are trying to do is, if you look at the state of the art literature, the price forecasts you're able to obtain can actually be improved because there are certain features which the current literature does not consider. One of the issues is geospatial dependencies. For example, if you have data about prices in different mandis, and you want to somehow capture the nearness of the mandis and also the geospatial sort of correlations that can happen among the prices in the mandis, then that if the machine learning model is able to learn some of these things, then I think the predictions will be much better. The other factor which most of the existing models do not consider are demand side factors. For example, how much of demand is going to be there? Are there some export kind of things, export import kind of factors coming into picture? So if you are able to also capture the demand side factors, that will tell us how the prices are going to be modulated based on that. So what we are trying to do is we are using state-of-the-art models. For example, apart from the usual conventional machine learning models like long short-term memory and so on, we are now using CNNs, convolutional neural networks, recurrent neural networks, graphical neural networks, hypergraph, deep learning, and so on. We are trying to use more contemporary machine learning models also, and we are able to get results which are very promising, I should say. But the lesson that we have learned in doing all this is that unless your data is clean, now whatever the sophistication of the machine learning model that you are going to use, your estimates are not trustworthy.
You have 2 minutes left. Thank you.
Thank you. So your estimates will be trustworthy only if you are able to use data that has been curated, and curation of data turns out to be a big challenge. So this is where we are currently at. In the months to come, I think we will have some really nice results, at least for these 5 crops. And of course, we would like to scale it up to all other crops across India. And then hopefully our research will be able to give a recommendation on for what crops price forecasts can be reliably used, and for what crops even the best techniques may not be able to satisfy things. So I think that is what we are trying to say in our research. I must thank all the members of my research team here. There's a PhD student here and MTech project students here and research engineer here. And thanks a lot to all of these people who are making our work in agriculture see the light of the day. And hopefully we will have something more promising, something more interesting to show next time when I give this talk in this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, you're welcome. Please give us update next time in the APAN54, which I believe is going to be in China. So, the common problem, the data cleansing, it doesn't matter how good your model is. If the not good data, it doesn't mean anything. Okay. Well, we go back to the questions, the previous questions that Professor Dr. Harunun would like to answer. Sir, are you still there?
Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
Regarding your question on the natural calamities like typhoons and cyclones, yes, the damage, they make a huge damage of the coastal wetlands like mangroves. And that is why actually the importance of wetlands are focused more on us, because the coastal wetlands are like natural barriers to protect the human settlements, agriculture, and industries. So that's why to protect ourselves from the natural calamities, we need to preserve and concentrate more on conserving the coastal wetlands such like mangroves. Well, regarding the recovery of the mangroves and coastal wetlands after the cyclone depends upon how much there are resiliences we have been able to develop in the mangroves, how less we are disturbing them. For example, even with the climate change and sea level rise, mangroves can gradually, like a kind of a creeping towards the landwards, is possible by the mangroves. But if the landwards area is blocked with a huge coastal construction, then mangrove cannot cope up with this sea level rise and other sea calamities and events. So we must have rooms for the mangroves to renew and replenish once it is disturbed by the natural calamities. Of course, there is a limit of reclaiming them and themselves by. So one thing what we can do is to plant with the mangroves in the lands where in the forest where the mangroves is destroyed. And this really works. Taking care of the mangroves, replanting with the mangroves is really helpful. So these are the things we can do. We must take care of our wetlands. That is important. Thank you.
Right. Okay. We also have the program in Thailand to do the wetland reforestation going on now. But you have another question, I think. Excellent presentation. I have a question to you, sir. Bangladesh government has taken few initiatives for Hilsa fishermen as payment for eco services, but it is very limited and everybody does not get it fairly. So is there any policy to prevent wetland destruction and protect wetland biodiversity? How about these wetland dependence communities, socioeconomic security? That's another question, please.
Well, Bangladesh as a signatory of the Ramsar Convention. Bangladesh also preserves, have programs, policies, laws to preserve the wetlands. And also, so as for the hillshire fishery management, Bangladesh has programs and policies. Most important thing is that to implement those policies and also taking consideration of the livelihood means of the people who are dependent upon the wetland. If you have a very strict policy and you are going to implement the policy, but if there is no other alternative means created for the people dependent on the wetlands for their livelihood, then the policy and strict implementation doesn't work. We have seen even in a rich or poor country, however you do it, it doesn't work. So you must have alternative income generation programs for the people who are dependent on the wetlands. And another important thing is that involving the local community in the management of the wetland. So that is why for wetland, any natural resource management, it should not be top-down. A big problem in many parts of these Asian countries and many developing countries, the policies are very top-down. They are formulated top-down, they are implemented top-down, but both of them should be bottom-up. And community engagement from the very beginning of the policy formulation and in the policy implementation and in the management of the natural resource is so important. Otherwise, you cannot implement the policies and preserve the wetlands. The people dependent upon the wetland must understand the value of the wetland for themselves. Only then we can preserve and conserve the wetland resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Yeah, totally agree. That's the same thing happened in Thailand. So we are running out of time, but we didn't do the group session photo yet. Please turn on your video camera, and then we'll do the group photo session. Then it's so unfortunate. Last time we have many sessions, but this time we have less. Oh, Basuki is here. Wow, really?
Read my.
Yeah, you have any question, Basuki?
I've read it.
Yeah, okay.